Joining us via Skype is Sean Kaufman. He's been training healthcare workers to combat Ebola in Liberia. Sean, great to see you this morning.
Good to see you too, Allison.
We know that you're actually coming to us from Dubai, where you are helping to train people there in terms of containing infectious diseases, including Ebola. So you're the perfect person to talk to this morning. What do you think of these mandatory quarantines that we're now seeing here in the U.S.?
Well, it's a good thing that I'm not a part of these mandatory quarantines, because then I wouldn't be able to continue to do my job, which is actually training folks to work with Ebola. But I don't like them. I don't like them. I think that they are a danger. I think that, you know, the battle against Ebola has to occur in West Africa. And if we develop policy that prevents us from fighting that battle in West Africa, then it could actually come to the United States.
And what you're referring to is that just 2 weeks ago, you were in Liberia. You were working with patients with Ebola. Why aren't you self-quarantining right now?
Well, it's funny. Look, anybody who comes from the front line has to take preventative measures, which means we have to assess ourselves, we have to behave in an appropriate manner, and we have to communicate. And so the reality is that I am assessing myself. I'm doing everything that I can to make sure that if something does go wrong, that I will be able to self-isolate, keep myself away from people responsibly, and again, continue to live my life, but live my life responsibly. And I think that everybody who dedicates themselves to this outbreak should have the right to do the same.
Well, Governor Chris Christie disagrees with you, and the reason he does is because we've seen examples here at home of people who haven't acted that responsibly. They were supposed to be self-quarantining at home, but they ended up going out to restaurants or getting on the subway or going to bowl or whatever. Granted, they were asymptomatic at the time, but it makes people nervous. And so let me play for you what Governor Chris Christie said about how people basically can't be trusted to do what you're suggesting.
The fact of the matter is that I don't believe, when you're dealing with something as serious as this, that we can count on a voluntary system. This is government's job. If anything else, the government's job is to protect the safety and health of our citizens. And so we've taken this action, and I absolutely have no second thoughts about it.
Sean, the voluntary system doesn't seem to work in every case. What do you say to that?
Well, look, these folks that are coming back to the United States should not be treated, in my opinion, like dogs. Here is a nurse who's dedicated her life caring and offering courage, compassion to patients in West Africa to fight the battle overseas, and she comes back and is put in a tent next to a hospital for 21 days. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I don't think Governor Christie is managing or leading. I think he's managing. I think he's doing a poor job at that. He's not using science. He's simply just using fear and trying to get folks to rally up against it, which I agree in the long run will end up hurting this battle against Ebola.
And the reason that you think it will hurt the battle against Ebola is because you think that if the quarantine is too draconian, as we're seeing with Kaci Hickox, she's alone in an isolation tent. She says that she was hungry, she was confused, she was tired, they were interrogating her. So you think that that will be a disincentive for people to go to Liberia or to go to places like Dubai where you are?
Allison, absolutely. Look, if I have to spend time overseas in a high stressful situation, and then when I come home I'm going to be treated like this, I'm not going again. I'm not going to spend my time overseas and then spend 3 weeks in a quarantine in a foreign place by myself. That's not going to happen, and I don't think anybody who has any type of family is going to allow that happen as well. Look, when we come home from these types of places, we should be treated like heroes. We can do better than what's being done in New York and New Jersey right now, and I hope that the leadership chooses to do something a little different and something a little better as well.
Very quickly, how about quarantined at home rather than in an isolation tent?
Where does it end, Allison? If we do it at home, does that mean that we can be around our kids and our wives, or does that mean that when we go home we have to move our kids and our wives out?